All right, here we go. Straight Facts Homie 2024 NFL Draft Preview. You can't get it anywhere else like we're about to give it to you right here in three, two, one. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, into the one and only Straight Facts Homie, an NFL TV show, a talk show, a podcast, a way of life coming your way. It is springtime. It's the end of April. That means the NFL draft is upon us, and it's the NFL draft preview show. I'm Mason Souza. There's Walter Sabina and John Lyons, the three amigos talking some ball. Guys, it's been a little bit. How are you? Are you ready to get your draft on?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking Patriots been the off season. We're getting ready for the Bruins and Celtics Patriot playoff run, but we've got one of the most important picks in Patriots history, at least in the last 30 years, coming up in less than a week. So it's going to be very interesting to see what direction the Patriots go.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about the draft ever since Mac Jones threw that interception in Germany back in November. So it's been a while, guys. It's been a while. It's nice for it to be finally upon us. And Walter brings up a great point. This is a hugely important draft, but for multiple reasons, right? You need to get the quarterback of the future, but you have big questions at left tackle, at wide receiver. You have a first-year head coach as well that's going to be kind of growing with these rookies, if you will. You have a lot of also other young players that you need these draft picks to fit with. So I think it's a hugely important draft, and I think it's a fascinating one as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have been talking about it for like 8 months nonstop, but you're right, John, about the point of how this team needs so much work. It's not a slam dunk, and we will talk about it in moments right now about do you just take the quarterback and then go from there, or do you stock up and grab a bunch of pieces to try to fix this team that we all know needs it. And obviously a new regime, Gerard Mayo and Elliot Wolf and company, no Bill Belichick. But I will pass the buck back to you guys. Like you mentioned, number three, we'll get into a second round pick later. We can do whatever we want over the next 15 minutes for the Patriots and then talk kind of general first round. And don't worry, everybody else, we will recap the NFL draft part two, see what we got right, what we got wrong, what we thought teams did that we liked and didn't. But Walter, let me pass it back to you. Number three, what do the Patriots do? What do you want them to do?
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot within the organization. There's a lot of voices being heard, at this point where in years past there was always, Bill Belichick, Ernie Adams. Those are the guys they took from what other people were saying about it. But now you've got, Gerard Mayo as a voice. You've got Alex Van Pelt as a voice. You've got Ben McAdoo as a voice. You might even have a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball that are saying, hey, there's a defensive guy. If we trade down, you've got to listen to what your scouts say. And now even more than ever, you've got Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft that probably want to say and what is arguably their most important pick as owners of the team. So you've got a lot of voices that are being heard as to who they should take at this number three position. I just ultimately want to know after we make this pick, if we make this pick at three, who ultimately, was the deciding factor in finalizing that choice. So there's a lot of different names we've heard. I mean, you listen to the radio, you read articles, it's Drake May, it's Jaden Daniel. Could Caleb Williams fall? Is it the outside chance that it's Marvin Harrison? But I think at this point in time, if you look at the model of what the Houston Texans have done, bringing in D'Amico Ryans, hitting on the draft pick and CJ Stroud, I was always the Marvin Harrison Jr. guy. Get that solid wide receiver. I think he's going to be one of the top receivers in the league in just a few years, regardless of who his quarterback could be. But obviously, having a good quarterback will just be more beneficial to him. But, you know, pair one of these young quarterbacks, even if you've got Jacoby Brissett, where he has to sit behind him for a year and then get his start, pair that young quarterback with a newly named head coach and kind of go from there and see what you can get. I mean, we don't know who that quarterback's going to be. We've seen, the Patriots talk about Drake May, talk about Jaden Daniels. We've seen JJ McCarthy fly up draft boards in the last couple weeks. So I can't put a name in that number three slot because I feel like I'm hearing something different each and every day. The one thing I don't want this Patriots team to do come Thursday, there's going to be a quarterback there that they may like. And if it is a choice, if they do like, Jaden Daniels over Drake May and Jaden Daniels goes two, maybe that's an opportunity to trade down. But I ultimately want them to use this number three pick on someone where you could accumulate more picks and build out your roster that way. But if the guy you think is going to change the future of your team there at three, go ahead and take them and see what we get from there.
Yeah, look, I think if there's a quarterback at three they really like, they should take him there. And I think there will be. And Walter, you mentioned Houston, and I think it's a great example. I mean, look at how quickly Houston became good. They had 2 bad years, right? David Culley, Lovie Smith. They get the young quarterback right. They get the head coach right. They're in the divisional round. Look at Cincinnati and how quick. Look, Cincinnati was bad for like 15 years, but this iteration of Cincinnati, they were really bad. What, 2019? Then they get Joe Burrow, bring in Zach Taylor. Burrow gets hurt in 2020. Then the next year, when he's fully healthy and they have Jamar Chase, they're in the Super Bowl. Look at Detroit. Detroit was bad, I know, for 30 years, but this iteration of Detroit, they were really bad in 2021. They get the quarterback right in Goff, to his credit. They get the head coach right. They get Aiden Hutchinson. 2 years later, they're in the NFC Championship game. So you can get good pretty quickly in the NFL. And what do the Patriots have in common with those teams? They already have a lot of good pieces on defense. So they really only have to focus on the offensive side of the ball, and they do have to improve their special teams. But where the Patriots are at, if they get quarterback right at 3 overall, I'm not telling you they're going to be in the divisional round of the playoffs like Houston, but they'll be a lot better than they were a year ago. And then maybe by 2025, we'll be looking at a really good team once again. Now, they got to get pick 34 right. They got to get the 3rd round pick right. But if they can get that quarterback right at 3, it'll energize them towards becoming a good team once again, a lot quicker, I think, than maybe we think right now.
In my opinion, this is not difficult. Your number 3, like Walter said at the start, this is the most important decision this franchise has made in the offseason, in likely of all time. Take the quarterback, whatever falls to you at 3. I like both Daniels and May. All in all, actually, from a grand scheme of things, I actually don't believe this entire quarterback class any of them will last 10 years in this league. That's just my opinion, just looking at them right off the top. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's just my initial thought on the whole draft. You got to take the quarterback, the most important position in the league, the most important position in all of team sports. Take the quarterback. I would prefer Jaden Daniels, but it looks like he's going to be a lock for Washington. I'm fine with Drake May, the pocket passer. At the same time, their offensive line, as we all mentioned a couple times over the last 7 minutes now, needs a lot of help. So maybe you would prefer the guy that can run a little bit more. But besides the point, so that kind of raises the question: do you trade up a spot from 3 to 2 and risk getting rid of pieces? I shut that theory down immediately, because you need as many picks as you can get in this draft. Although I wouldn't be against trading up later on, say day 3 or late day 2, something like this, to try to nab a high quality player at either wide receiver or tackle. Take the quarterback, number 3. If it's Drake May, develop him. You know, you have an organization of coaches and assistant coaches. This isn't that, set in stone here. Just because he is what he is in college doesn't mean he's not going to grow. It's your job now to get him in your system and get him to grow. Get the people around him, get the players around him that was it Van Pelt? I'm sure it was one of maybe the new coaches, or maybe it was Elliot Wolf himself that said, like, listen, we're going to mold to our player strengths. Like, it doesn't need to be a set in stone system. Easy for me to say, a set in stone system of, we're going to run this, or we're going to be a high or West Coast team or whatever. If your quarterback is a run and gun, a mobile offense, you got to adjust, or, whatever the case may be. So if Drake May is more of a pocket guy, then maybe continue what you're doing, beef up those tackles, which you should in the first place, and go from there. So my initial take here, take the quarterback, and it looks like it's going to be Drake May.
Yeah. And there's obviously the talk of that pick at 34. Could the Patriots make their pick at 3, whether it be quarterback, whether there's the outside chances the quarterback they don't like that was picked at 2, and they go, whether it be Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade down into the early teens, get a pick there, and say trade back in late first round. I don't know what you guys think of them grabbing Michael Penix, how you liked what he did in the college football playoff. I know he's had double torn ACLs, so he's kind of dealing with some lower body injuries just entering the NFL, but a good arm, a lefty, something you don't normally see in the NFL, a lefty gunslinger quarterback. But I've heard rumors of that, or murmurs of that. If the Patriots maybe don't like what they have at 3, trade down a bit, acquire picks, or make the pick at 3 there at your quarterback position, and then trade back into the first round and get one of these wide receivers. Because it's funny that this draft is happening now, where you're loaded up top with quarterbacks and you're also loaded in the first round with wide receivers. I think the Patriots are in a prime position. They could get the quarterback of their future, also trade back into the first round. Looking at just a player ranking I have here, Brian Thomas out of LSU. Everyone's high on Malik Neighbors, but you look at Brian Thomas, 6'4" build, 205. You can build him up to be sort of that red zone outside receiver that you would want and pair him with a young quarterback. So there's plenty of options for the Patriots to possibly, as of next Thursday, have 2 first-round picks, trading that with some leverage, that number 34 pick to get back in the first round, to get 2 highly skilled guys to really get your offense off on the right foot with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, nice young core there with a quarterback and wide receiver, and see where the future brings you.
Yeah, that pick at 34 overall, I think, is the one we could see some movement on. Like, I think they're going to stay at 3 and pick a quarterback there, but 34 is where we could see a trade up into the first round or a trade back. Even if there's multiple guys at the end of the first round that they all like, they might say, hey, we'll wait at 34 and we'll even trade back into the late 30s, early 40s, pick up some additional picks and get a guy we like there. So I think 34, and that's really a valuable second round pick, because it's not just a second round pick, but it's so high. It's almost like a extra late first round pick, if you'll stretch that with me. So it's a really valuable pick to have, especially entering day 2 after the dust settles on day 1. So that's the pick I could see them moving back with. Or let's say, like you mentioned, Brian Thomas, if there's a guy, or AD Mitchell, that's sitting there, like, let's say pick 25, and they're like, hey, we love this guy, they're going to go up and get him, from 34 and add in their 3rd or 4th round pick to do it. So that's the pick I really have my eye on as far as movement goes. I don't think they're going to move their 3rd overall pick in the first round, but I could see them moving one way or the other with pick 34.
You're watching Straight Facts, homie. NFL Draft Preview. That's John Lyons. There's Walter Sabina. I am Mason Souza. We'll be back next week after the NFL Draft, recapping and reacting to mostly the Patriots, obviously everything else, the trades that happened in the entire NFL Draft. Jump into that point. I'll give you that, John. The extended first round, I'll give you that at 34. I hope you get a first round talent at 34 if they stay there. And lucky, I think, Walter, you mentioned this too, about how deep it is at wide receiver, offensive tackle even. So the players and the positions that the Patriots need, they are thankful that it seems like the first round is going to be loaded with offensive talent. So take advantage of that. If you want to get back up in there and get a top flight wide receiver, a hard-nosed offensive tackle, even though it seems like with doing no research at all, which hand up, I apologize about that, even though my research probably falls flat on its face from time to time on this show. I would think the wide receivers in the first round seem to have a higher success rate than offensive tackles. That's just me. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just look back at certain tackles that were taken in the top 10. It seems like they were kind of phased out or overrated in the end. And it just goes back to what is most important in this league today. The quarterback, the wide receiver, offensive tackle. I'd probably put it in that order. 1, 2, 3. That's just me personally. You guys may disagree. So I think that's how the Patriots should take advantage of this. I do not want to see a defensive player until at least their 4th pick in the NFL draft. If I see a cornerback go in with the 2nd pick, I'm done. Like, what are we doing? So we have so many players. I say the Patriots have so many players and pieces that need to be filled on the offensive side of the ball. You should not be looking at defense until ideally day 3. That's just me. So we'll go from there. But if all in all, if we're just skipping to 34, I very much like the idea of taking a swing at wide receiver to match with your new quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen, probably other viewers of the show, during the week, I believe it was Thursday, AJ Brown on social media changing his pictures to Tom Brady starting to follow Jacoby Brissett, KJ Osborne. I don't know what you guys think of all those moves. You buying into, AJ Brown maybe wanting out of Philly? I know last year, me personally had him on my fantasy team, didn't do much last season. Seemed like he grew disgruntled during the season. Do you think there's a possibility that the Patriots would make a run at either AJ Brown, or I've heard Brandon Ayuk's name out of San Francisco come up? Do you guys think that either of those players are in play to come to New England in the near future?
Yeah, look, with pick 34, I would call the Eagles about A.J. Brown. I would call the 49ers about Brandon Ayuk, and I would call the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. And if one of those guys would be available for pick 34, I'd be all in for it. Because those guys still, what they have in common is, yeah, A, they're great receivers, but B, they're all still relatively young, right? And A.J. Brown, I know, has 3 more years, I think, of control on his contract, so he's got some time there. But they're young enough where you can bring those guys in, and it's not a 30 or 31-year-old guy who's only got a couple good years left. Like, they could be a part of growing with your offense and your young quarterback for 5 or 6 or 7 years, which in the NFL, as we know, is an eternity. So one of those 3 guys, I'd be open to pick 34. And I always do lean with receiver. There's so many good ones, but I like a guy that's done it in the NFL already. And part of that is I'm a little gun shy on how many receivers the Patriots have missed on over the last 20 years, which I know was not necessarily Elliott Wolf's fault, but it's something that I do like the guy that's done it in the league and done it at a high level. I mean, you look at those 3 guys, they're all elite players. A.J. Brown and Ayuk have played in the last 2 Super Bowls as well. So I think that's helpful for a young team that's growing to try to be a contender again. With offensive tackle, though, like if there's an offensive tackle they love at 34, I'm fine with that too. Like, I think especially with a young quarterback, I'd put that ahead of receiver, to Mason's earlier point. I think they're close, but I'd put it ahead. But I think what they really should do with pick 34 is look at the board and say, who's our best receiver? Who's our best tackle? Whichever one of those guys is better, either trade up for if they need to, or take at that spot. Or if one of those 3 veterans will be traded for 34, I'd do that.
Yeah, I agree with your point, John, about A.J. Brown and the wide receiver. I'd do that yesterday. 34 for A.J. Brown. Absolutely. I agree with the fact that
By the way, if you're the Eagles, you traded a first round pick for Brown. So if you get pick 34 back, yes, it's a second round, but it's a high second round pick. You just signed Devonta Smith to a ton of money. You're going to have other contracts of guys you need to re-sign. You can use pick 34 to just draft another young receiver to go with Devonta Smith. So it does, like, the Eagles are a contending team, so they don't want to strip themselves of a bunch of parts. But I think this is one they could rationalize pretty well and end up being okay with, especially if Jalen Hurts continues to progress and mature as a quarterback.
Just sell to the Eagles extended first round. You know, you get an extended first round pick back. So
it's a comp pick. It's a first round comp pick.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I'm down with that. And there was the talk a few months ago now. It seems like the scent is off that now about Justin Jefferson. Would you, real quickly, as we move to like everything else in the NFL, would you be interested in trading 3 for arguably the best wide receiver in the game for the Vikings 11th pick and say another first round pick?
Ooh, boy, I mean, if you can, so you're trading Jefferson and 3, but you're getting the Vikings 11 pick back. You mentioned,
yes.
Okay.
Well, so you're getting Jefferson, you're getting 11, and a future first round pick, for trading away the number 3 pick.
Yeah. See, it depends on, like, because you got to look at like who New England likes. You know, if they like one of those top 3 guys they expect to go, I don't know if they make that trade. They've said they fielded some offers, but nothing that really moves the needle enough for them to move that number 3 pick. Maybe it is a star player, like a guy like Justin Jefferson. Could that be a guy that moves the needle, but you miss your pick on a young quarterback? So it's kind of like, do you want the good wide receiver or do you want the young quarterback? So I think at this point, I think, Robert Kraft, he wants it. I think a guy like Alex Van Pelt, they want the young quarterback to grow with. So I don't think I would pull the trigger on it just basing off what I would be expecting of those guys. So keep 3, get the young quarterback, maybe trade up into the first round, get another young wide receiver to pair with him. Maybe one of those guys grows into being a top wide receiver in the league, hopefully, and just take your chances from there. See what Alex Van Pelt can put on this field, and because it can't be any worse than what we've seen on offense the last couple of years from this team.
Yeah, to me, the most valuable thing in the NFL is a great quarterback. So if there's a guy at 3 that you think is going to be a great quarterback, take him. If not, then I would consider moving down, and that deal of Justin Jefferson plus 2 additional first round picks, I would do that as long as one of those first round picks was that 11th overall, where you could get potentially the next tier of QB that maybe you didn't love at 3, but you love at 11. But that's the thing. Like, a great quarterback is the most valuable commodity in the NFL. So if there's one there at 3 that you think is going to be great, take them. The second most valuable commodity is first round picks. So if you don't think there's a great quarterback, then I'm fine to trade down. But I'm not trading down just to get Justin Jefferson or just because I want more picks. It's because there's a quarterback, or I don't like one of the quarterbacks there at 3. And I'm like, okay, then I'll pick up additional picks. But if there's a guy there they love that they think's going to be great, even if it's in Adam Schefter's words, 4 number ones, I'm not doing it.
I know I just started the show saying this is easy, take the quarterback, but in that scenario, I take Jefferson at 3. And if you're interested in Michael Penix or Bo Nix, even though they are supposed to be second round guys, maybe not, the value isn't great, you take them. You take one of them at 11 if McCarthy, May, Williams, and Daniels are all off the board. You make sure you get the quarterback at 11. So I'd be down with that. We have about 7 minutes left or so here. Let us talk about basically everything else. I mean, we could go more and more on the Patriots, but we don't want to sound like homers here on this program. So let us get to everything else, and we gave ourselves plenty of time. Anything else off the top? Speaking with the first round, obviously Caleb Williams, it seems like a slam dunk going to the Bears. I would be shocked beyond belief if there's anything else at this point. Washington with Jaden Daniels, and then obviously we talked about the Patriots. You guys agree that's the situation at the top, and what else catches your eye in the top 5, top 10?
Yeah, I mean, there's all this talk of, the possibility the Bears not taking Caleb Williams. I think that's the pick at 1. We've heard Jaden Daniels' name at 2 for the Washington Commanders. I feel like that's the way they're going to go. And if, again, coming back to the Patriots, if Jaden Daniels was their guy, if they like the way he, played a little bit better than Drake May, then maybe that's your opportunity to trade back. Because yeah, we like Drake May, but we like Jaden Daniels better. And maybe if you had Drake May there, trade back with that Justin Jefferson deal to move back to 11. And if Drake May's still there, maybe the value's there to take him at 11 while acquiring more picks. You could get away that way. I don't see Drake May falling to 11 though. Maybe it'd be a guy like Michael Penix Jr. But just you very well could see the first 3. Maybe with Arizona at 4, maybe 4 quarterbacks go off the board in the first 5 picks. So it's going to be a quarterback heavy draft. I think it's Caleb Williams at 1, then it's going to be a complete crapshoot at 2 and 3. And, maybe there is a move for New England that moves the needle that they end up trading out and acquiring more picks for the future.
Yeah, the team besides the Patriots I have my eye on the most is actually Arizona, which is not something we usually say on this program, but we've talked a lot about Minnesota having 2 first-round picks. The Cardinals have 2 first-round picks as well, including number 4 overall. So that's a spot where it feels like that, like they say they believe in Kyler Murray. I don't know if they 100% believe in Kyler, but that's if they do. Well, then they can trade down. Another quarterback might go at 4. So that complicates things for the Patriots because if they want to trade down, but then they feel like the team at 3 and at 4 would both take QBs, maybe they don't. But Arizona, again, they can take Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt at 4 and get the best, non-quarterback player in the draft, plus a later first-round pick. So that's just, to me, they're a team that I really have my eye on. And if I'm one of those teams, like we mentioned Minnesota, if they want to move up and take a QB and the Patriots aren't answering, they can trade with Arizona. All of a sudden, Arizona might have 3 first-round picks, totally turn their team around in an NFC West that, like, Seattle has some questions at quarterback. I think they're good. They're going to have a new head coach, though. San Francisco has some questions at quarterback, but I still think they're elite. And the Rams, they've got, I think, a lot better than I think we thought they would be over the last 2 years. But if Arizona walks in with 2 or 3 first-round pick level talents next year, like, that's going to be a fantastic division. And I know they have a new head coach as well. So they're a team that, with 2 first-round picks, especially at 4, and what they really think of Kyler Murray, I really have my eye on. And who knows? Maybe if they don't believe in Kyler Murray, they leapfrog the Patriots. They trade up to 2 overall, take a guy the Patriots like. It's just, there's a lot of intrigue there, I think, with Arizona at 4, and obviously with their second first-round pick as well.
Yeah, so looking at the top 10 here, some of the teams that are at least questionable at quarterback, obviously 1 through 3, we talked about Chicago, Washington, and New England. Arizona, as you mentioned there, John, I lean on the fact of they probably have more than a peak at their next quarterback, because I don't think they believe in Kyler Murray. Obviously, the Los Angeles Chargers have Justin Herbert. They're going to stay with them. New York Giants, that's up in the air with Daniel Jones. Maybe they take someone like J.J. McCarthy. I've seen a lot of talk of possibly them trading up to number 4 with the Arizona Cardinals. And then the Tennessee Titans, it seems like they have Malik Willis. They're fine with that, or Will
But do they
Levis. I'm
really
sorry.
like Will Levis? I mean, what if they don't? Like, I don't
Exactly.
know. Was he a and they probably, you're probably right. They'll give him another year, but like if they took JJ McCarthy there, I don't think people would be that upset.
No, I don't think so as well. Atlanta Falcons have Kirk Cousins now, and then go on down the list. New York Jets at number 10 with Aaron Rodgers. They're going to give it a go one more time. So I do envision a couple trades here in the top 10 are quite likely. Because obviously at this we've talked about it at nauseum at this point. Quarterback is the most important position in the league, and teams are looking to make a jump, and with coaches, GMs on the hot seat faster than ever, under scrutiny of ownership and sponsorship and this "we want it now" mentality. Obviously, these owners have been around for a long time, most of them, I would think majority of them. But it seems like quote unquote loyalty and stick with itness, if I can make up a word right now, is kind of out the door in the world, never mind just the NFL itself. Like, win now. What have you done for me lately? So if you want to mortgage your future in a way, I mean, we talked about this briefly as I'm sorry, I'll get back to Walter and John, and you guys can go around the room real quickly. But the San Francisco 49ers, they took a chance with Trey Lance, and then that ruined, they traded everything. Then they end up back in the Super Bowl. So there's a blueprint, though. It's possible to get back there. So that's besides the point. Do anything you can to try and get the quarterback. So I do envision some trades happening in the top 10. Back to you guys. I'm done talking.
I think just my final question to you guys is: we've seen him flying up draft boards after he won a national championship. JJ McCarthy, you know, obviously a guy like Jim Harbaugh is telling teams that, oh, he sees JJ McCarthy possibly going with the number 1 pick, which I don't think is a reality at this point. But do you guys see JJ McCarthy going top 10? Do you see him as a first round guy? Me personally, I think he could be an early second round guy. And I think that's the type of talent he had, especially looking at what he played with in Michigan, a run first team, very stout defense where, not to say he was like a game manager, but he also did make plays as well with his arm. I think the one thing you can look for in him is, the footwork, the arm there. He was coached by Jim Harbaugh, who was a quarterback in the NFL himself. So you got like first tier coaching right there at Michigan. But I don't know. I just think that who he played behind in the type of offense they ran at Michigan, I just think JJ McCarthy is going to be drafted higher than maybe he should be, and the talent that he's going to show in the NFL. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, maybe Jim Harbaugh should put his money where his mouth is and trade Justin Herbert to the Patriots for 3 overall. I would take that deal, guys, and then he can draft JJ McCarthy at 3. And as far as McCarthy himself, Walter, it's a great point because like they haven't played any games since January, but it feels like he's just shooting up these draft boards, to use the expression. I think people in the NFL like JJ McCarthy. Not only was he good for Michigan, albeit they were a run-based team, but he was good. And being coached by Jim Harbaugh carries real weight in the NFL. The guy's a good quarterback coach. He was good with quarterbacks at Stanford, good with quarterbacks with the 49ers. Like, that carries weight. So I do think he's a first-round pick. Now, I think there's a gap between Daniels and May and him. I don't think it's a massive gap, but I think it's a gap. So I think he could be that 4th quarterback off the draft. Now, that could be as high as 6 overall with the Giants, or it could be 11 with Minnesota or a little later. But I do think he's a first round pick. And I think, again, there's a gap, but I still think he could be a pretty good NFL QB.
I'm with Walter on this. I think this is a Jim Harbaugh hype train, like doing his college quarterback a solid. Like, I thought he's good enough to go number 1. So yeah, good point, John. Like, oh yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Hey, I'll take Justin Herbert.
Draft
here.
your guy. Yeah,
heck
there
yeah,
you
man.
go. So yeah, I think, but who knows? Maybe some teams buy into the hype, and we go from there. As we mentioned at nauseum, quarterback clearly the most important position and sought after position. That is Straight Facts, homie. The NFL Draft Preview Show. We will be back next week recapping to specifically what the Patriots did and any other wild fireworks, because there usually is. It is a spectacle. It'll be in Detroit this year. So that'll be interesting. And all the happenings for John Lyons, Walter Sabina, I'm Mason Souza. Thank you guys for finding us, and we'll be back next time.